The Gentle Rebel Podcast.
For introverts, highly sensitive people, and creative misfits.
Hello, welcome to the Gentle Rebel Podcast, where I explore how to live a more meaningful life as a sensitive, creative type person without getting overwhelmed by all the noise and busyness and absurdity of our modern world. My name is Andy Mort. I'm a songwriter, performer, creativity coach, and massive introvert. And I love helping other Gentle Rebels find the courage and perspective required to make their own quiet stand for what truly matters in life to them. Welcome to episode number 311, where today I want to talk about luxury and play a couple of songs for you. I hope you're doing well. It's really great to be with you again. I'm kind of in a drippy, sweaty mess here. It's we're supposed to have had thunderstorms and rain today, but we haven't, and so it's stuffy and it's humid. And as a typical British person, I love to complain about the weather. So yeah, you have to put up with that. But anyway, I hope you're well. The year's kind of taken a different turn to what we might have expected, hasn't it? You know, when lockdown hit in March, that kind of feels like a long time ago. I think it does now, and it kind of feels recent, but I think more than that, it feels a long time. When that happened, it became clear that all those plans that we might have made, those things that you kind of pledged to yourself, you said, right, 2020 is going to be the year for this, for that, whatever. Start of a new decade, we're going to hit the ground running, everything is going to be brilliant. Things have kind of potentially needed to change quite a lot from those plans. I don't know what it's meant for you. I know for some people it's been absolutely horrible, with events and ceremonies postponed or cancelled, and colossal amounts of money as well written off and unrecoverable. And if you are in a situation like that, I am sorry, and please, feel free to get in touch to share if you need to. I can't change the situation, but if you're kind of feeling, I don't know, out of your depth, overwhelmed, lonely, or lost, then I want you to feel a little bit connected. So please do send me an email. That's definitely the most reliable way to get hold of me at the moment. Taking a bit of a break from social media. I'm still there or thereabouts, but yeah, definitely just send me an email. It'd be good to connect, because I am very aware that this is not easy for a lot of people. So, do that if you feel compelled. With social media, I am still using social media, but I decided to take, I guess, a bit more a much more intentional and deliberate approach to it, because it's really getting on top of me. So I removed Twitter, I removed Instagram, I removed the BBC News app. So I've basically removed all news apps from my phone and replaced them. So I replaced Twitter. I think I put Byword where Twitter was. So that's a simple text editor. It's basically what I use to kind of do most of my writing. Then Day One, which is my journaling app, the app that I kind of do all of my journaling in, I put that where Instagram was. And then I put the Kindle app where the BBC News app was. So I was trying to catch myself and work out what, how often I just mindlessly go onto those particular apps. And I must say, this kind of last month, so I did it almost a month ago now. Well, no, but it probably was about 4 weeks ago. It's been the most productive and creative month that I've had for as long as I can remember, to be honest. And it's bizarre how changing the action that a trigger leads to can actually really shift a habit. So, as I say, when my fingers mindlessly scroll to where they think Twitter is, I end up opening Byword. And where, on Byword, I've got kind of a blog post or a page of ideas waiting for me. So if I remember in the morning, I'll open a blog post that I'm wanting to kind of develop ideas around on my phone. So when I open it, it's like, that's what confronts me. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'll just spend a bit of time on that. And so, yeah, like I've opened that in a moment of downtime, and ended up writing like entire articles when I'd previously just mindlessly scrolled through my Twitter news feed and got more and more annoyed and felt more and more helpless about stuff that I was reading. Likewise, opening day one, this led me to kind of add photographs and little updates about my day so far. Like nothing major, just a kind of bit of I'm on the app now, so I'll leave something, even if it's just this is what I noticed. I've just seen this happen, because there's so many things that happen in a day that you just forget about, but actually can be quite funny. They can be quite profound. They can, I don't know, be poignant. So yeah, I mean, over the past few weeks, it's been just really nice to see a growing body of little snapshots of life, really, through that. And then the third app, the Kindle app, just opens to a book that I, generally think, I never have time to read that, because and if I open that, like I'm obviously aiming to open the BBC News app and see what's new in the world, and actually opening the Kindle app instead means I have more control and enough time to do pretty much what I set as intentions. All these things. It's weird how simple it is to put things in place so that the thing you want to do becomes the thing that is actually easy to do, and the thing you end up doing. I'm not saying that I've got this thing perfect, but it's been an interesting experiment. It's been really, I think, profoundly more successful than I ever imagined it might be. Because I think we often make life so difficult for ourselves by placing obstacles in the way, and almost like intentionally placing obstacles in the way, as if we to some degree want to sabotage ourselves. So we lay temptations in our own path so that we end up just, having to fight battles just to do what we would ideally have ourselves do. And then we have those obstacles create excuses, and those excuses are things that they're the kind of stories that we tell ourselves about why the thing we want to do is not the thing that we're doing, if that makes sense. And so this links to our theme this month quite perfectly, which is the theme of luxury, which I wasn't expecting. When I set out the plans for this year's themes, luxury wasn't on the list, but it kind of became a part of my list, as I'll explain after reading a certain chapter of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And I want to kind of talk about this slightly messy relationship we have with luxury because of really how we think of it. And in this episode, I want to explore ways that we do think of luxury, the ways we can think of luxury, and changing that relationship we have with the idea of luxury so that we can kind of be set free and allowed to kind of make up our own standards and our own definitions for it, rather than believing the stories that we tell ourselves about. Pretty much about the luxury that other people enjoy, the luxury that we don't get to enjoy. We don't have access to it in our own lives. But look at those people over there; they live in such luxury, because that's so often that's what luxury is to us, isn't it? It's something others have, but we don't quite have access to. Think of things like the way we say stuff like, "Oh, I wish I had the luxury of a lion," or "If only I had the luxury of a 4-bedroom house. You're so lucky." As we compare ourselves to others, luxury becomes an excuse for dissatisfaction. And as we use it in such a way, we kind of lose sight of the luxuries that we possess, the luxuries that we have access to, the luxuries we enjoy on a day-to-day basis. And we also define luxury by these kind of surface level standards. And we don't get into the kind of nuts and bolts of why luxury kind of is there for us, like real luxury, true luxury. And I think this is relevant for us as introverts and highly sensitive people as well, because we're growing in self-awareness and appreciation about what it means to be, orientated to the world in our natural ways. That kind of sense of like, I'm an introvert, therefore I gain my energy by going inwards, by spending time alone, by, recharging in that sort of way. And I see this transition occur over time with people that I work alongside, from the early days when there's this kind of sense of a lack, this kind of, I guess, poverty, this gap, where it feels like the person that I'm working with is missing something that they perceive other people to have, that they see other people have. We might look at extroverts and wish we had the luxury of their confidence, the luxury of their approach to life, the luxury of, I don't know, their ability to do small talk or whatever it is, the thing that is for us like the focal point, I suppose. And then over time, it starts to become evident that the luxury isn't in the external appearance, but it's found on the inside. True luxury is in the self-awareness and the ability of a self-aware person to better manage their natural preferences and tendencies, rather than resenting and working against them, thinking, this is this is the problem that I have. They've got this luxury of being like completely different to me. They have the luxury of having all these gifts that I don't, basically. And as we learn more about introversion and sensitivity, we step into a place of luxury. No longer do we feel, or do we need to feel alone, or need to feel weird, or like we're lacking something. Actually, there's many, many, many of us. We are weirdly normal, and we are enough. We have enough. We're equipped to learn what we need in order to survive and in order to thrive. And so, in some ways, this highlights a big difference between fake luxury, which is a judgment that we place on others. Like, we look at other people, we think, they have the luxury of this, they possess this, they don't have to deal with this, that's luxurious for them. The difference between that and true luxury, which is a freedom that we get to grant ourselves. And as I said, I was inspired to talk about this topic when reading The Artist's Way, and it was week 6 in particular, which is called Recovering a Sense of Abundance. And during that week, Julia Cameron talks a lot about our relationship with luxury and with limitation. It's a really fascinating week to explore, to delve into, because it's all about that strange, that often difficult relationship that we have with the idea of wealth, with money, with materialism. Those ingrained messages that we have kind of built into our minds over the years around what we kind of deserve, what we believe virtue is, and where we believe our position is in society. And in the context of creativity and art in particular, this is especially interesting as we kind of untangle it and pick it apart. This has definitely been a huge, huge struggle for me over the years. This contrast between the abundant energy, the abundant spirit of creativity versus the kind of miserly and finite supply of money that, this idea that only a few will ever have access to this miserly, this finite supply of money, this and resources and that kind of stuff, and success, and that space to occupy. And then this kind of disappearance into what Cameron calls wet blanket mode. She talks about a time when she bought herself a horse for the first time in 10 years. She obviously used to ride horses, didn't ride horses for a while, bought herself a horse, and kind of gave herself the luxury of that kind of gift again. And when she told her friend about this, he said, "Well, I hope you don't expect to get to ride it much or even see it much. As you get older, you do less and less of the things you enjoy. Life becomes more and more about doing what you must." And this is the same friend who she describes in the chapter as well. She says, a world famous artist of formidable talents. He's assured a place in history for his contributions to his field. he's sought after by younger artists and respected by older artists. Although not yet 50, he's already been singled out for Lifetime Achievement Awards. Nonetheless, this is an artist suffering in the throes of artistic anorexia. Although he continues to work, he does so at greater and greater cost to himself. Why, he sometimes wonders to himself, does his life's work now feel so much like his life's work? Why? Because he's denied himself luxury. Let me be clear that the luxury I'm talking about here has nothing to do with penthouse views, designer clothes, zippy foreign sports cars or first-class travel. This man enjoys all of those privileges. But what he doesn't enjoy is his life. He's denied himself the luxury of time with friends, time with family, above all, time to himself with no agendas of preternatural accomplishment. His many former passions have dwindled to mere interests. He's too busy to enjoy pastimes. He tells himself he has no time to pass. The clock is ticking, and he's using it to get famous. She says about his comment on her new horse, because I've learned to hear wet blanket messages. I love that term. I've learned to hear wet blanket messages for what they are. I was not too daunted by this prognosis, but I was saddened by it. It reminded me of the vulnerability of all artists, even very famous ones, to the shaming, I should be working side of themselves that discourages creative pleasures. It's a really powerful point, and one that really hits home for me, because this doesn't just apply to artists, it doesn't just apply to kind of creative people in creative fields. We're all susceptible to this kind of messaging about the things that matter most to us. You know, we write that stuff off as part of, we just have to sacrifice the things we enjoy. As we get older, we have more responsibility and so on. And yet it's often simply a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, we believe that we don't deserve something, or we believe that we don't have time for those things that actually bring us a lot of joy. So we end up without time for those things. And yet, if we audit our lives and check out the things we do spend time and energy and money on, we quickly realize that actually we've lost control a bit, because the things we do spend those resources on are things that don't actually matter that much to us. And this is what started my questioning of social media and the news that I mentioned earlier. Alongside that, the kind of general growing sense of hopeless melancholia that I was experiencing, I decided to just keep an eye on my spending, what I was kind of spending and what I was wasting time on. This is time spending. I'm not talking about money. So over a couple of weeks, I kind of checked in to analyse my screen time on my phone, see what I was doing, and to basically check in with what I was kind of putting those resources into without really thinking. And it turned out I was checking Twitter and Instagram and BBC News and email as well, 3.5 hours a day, actively on those apps for 3.5 hours. That's nearly 25 hours a week, 100 hours a month, more than 100 hours a month, just pretty much scrolling, liking the odd thing, but mostly what I was kind of committing myself to was just getting annoyed or engaging negative emotions. I mean, that's the equivalent amount of time as a part-time job. I don't know how it kind of added up to that, but it just did. And I didn't have anything to show for it other than a growing sense of, apathy and resentment and hopelessness and real frustration. And to that point where I was just getting so annoyed with it. It wasn't a great return on my investment, I'll be honest. So, I got to that point where it was like, well, when I'm saying I don't have time to read, or I don't have time to exercise, or I don't have the luxury of time to learn a new skill or and practice something, turns out I could have more than enough time for all of those things. It's just a kind of matter of perspective. And I know, we've probably all heard stuff like this a million times. We know this. We know that, it's just a matter of what we prioritize, and actually there is enough time to do certain things. We waste a lot of time doing things that we don't think about, and it doesn't make it easy to do, because, hey, it's not easy, is it? It's simple, but it's not easy. Those apps are designed to make us come back and to numbly scroll The reporters of news want us to keep coming back throughout the day to check out the latest developments. And kind of, I guess this message that, if you're not connected, then you're missing out. This is reinforced over and over in our lives. Like if you're not informed, then somehow you're ignorant, somehow you're selfish. But this is creating a new kind of, and a different kind of poverty for us. We buy into this idea that we've got to be constantly busy, we've got to be connected, we've got to be productive, we've got to stay informed, we've got to know what's going on, we've got to be keyed into the latest stories, the developments around the world. And there are products, there are tools, there are advancements to help us do this in more and more efficient and automated ways. And I think these things are the perception of luxury. They provide a solution to a problem that only exists because of the problem itself, because we believe in it. We think that luxury is the privilege that we buy for ourselves. It's the better phone. That's luxury. It's the smart coffee machine or the designer jeans, whatever. We think these are the things that provide luxury to our lives. But actually, true luxury is the freedom from the need for those things. True luxury is the ability to live life without standards and expectations that mean you spend most of life caught between judgment and envy, between looking down on those who don't have what they should aspire to acquire and those who have what you wish you could acquire. This is just a life of perpetual dissatisfaction and poverty, one that might look like a life of luxury to those looking on, but is underpinned by disconnection, underpinned by dissatisfaction. Can you think of something you love to do, which you've been convinced to believe is out of your reach now because as you get older, you do less and less of the things you enjoy. Life becomes more and more about doing what you must. Stop and think for a second. How true is that message? If you had more and more time to do what you enjoy, what would you bring back into your life? Just think about your kind of response to that question. We'll have a little break. Well, you will. I'm going to play a song. and this is from Year Zero. It's called Pretending to Sleep. I don't normally play this on the piano, but I'm going to for this. It's about those kind of moments when we kind of know something isn't quite right, or we're aware of an issue that needs challenging, and we just kind of avoid confronting it. We turn our eyes away from it. We pretend that we can't see it or hear it, and we can't really quite comprehend what's going on, but really we know.
Sleep talking investment quickly. Sell my soul for a chance. Priest is quick to grant forgiveness, but where I'm going is hell. It's impossible to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to wake somebody like me. Arms great back like spider fractures, bee stings walking the light. Old swan dry mouth, short term get out. Sandstorm blows me away. It's impossible to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible impossible to ache somebody like me. It's impossible to ache someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to ache somebody like me. Head in the sand, feet in the sea, submerged within nature and the places I flee. My form isn't good, but getting better with age. It's protected by prayer and the minimum wage. A bottle of help is only short-lived, slicing up dreams, they're all allocated. I wriggle and squirt for pressure and time, and I pretend to myself that I'm doing just fine. It's impossible to ache someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to ache somebody like me. It's impossible to ache someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to ache somebody like me.
Podcasts cost money to produce, buying equipment, paying for hosting, not to mention the time it takes to put these things together. I don't want to have a go at shows that choose to advertise things to cover costs, but I personally wanted to completely avoid going down that route. So the Gentle Rebel podcast is funded 100% by you, the listeners, through Patreon, where for just $3 a month you get regular unscripted extended play episodes where I share new ideas, background to the songs that I'm playing, and general stuff that's going on in my world and in the world generally, with the hope that it will kind of encourage and support and equip you, my introverted and sensitive friends, on your path of creative misfittery. You get a personal thank you in a future episode, bonus videos and resources in early development, and you can ask me anything in the private comment area. I just love helping people locate and harness and hone their creative voices. It'd be a joy to do the same with you. So it's so great to be able to produce this show, and I couldn't do it without the generous support of listeners. Thank you so much to all of you who already are Patreons. You are absolute legends, and if you like the sound of this and fancy earning legendary status in my heart for yourself, then go to patreon.com/Andy Mort. Thank you so much. So this theme of luxury has come out of something that I've been delving into over the past couple of months quite a lot in a quest to uncover the theme for next year in the Haven, a year that starts in September, which is kind of exciting. And here, the moment where you're like, I don't know what the theme's going to be, is quite scary. But then when it all comes together, it's like, this is really fun. So this year, everything's been kind of put together in the spirit of this idea that wherever you are in life, this is not the end of your story. So, we go through the main themes of change, belonging, serenity, strength, confidence, adventure, creativity, tranquility, and inspiration, with this kind of foundational thread that this is not the end of your story. There's always a new chapter to be written. No matter what you think, you might be thinking, like, I'm too old. I'm too, stuck in my ways, whatever it is. But actually, it's never the end of your story. And so that's what we've been looking at these themes in light of. And so a few months ago, I kind of opened my mind up to work out, what's going to be the overarching spirit for next year as we kind of go through 2020 to 2021, through those same themes. So we explore the same themes again, but in the spirit of a different kind of overarching idea. And I was reminded of an idea that first struck me actually, I think it was 2006, 2007, when I wrote my song, Hold On. And I remember being at university, I was completely overwhelmed by pretty much just the volume of work that I had to get through. It was getting quite intense. You know, the reading list was growing every week, and it wasn't really shrinking because I wasn't doing all that much reading, or at least I was a slow reader. So anything that I could read and understand was taking me a very long time. And all this reading for the different modules, plus working on my dissertation, and trying to, you know, get my head around what I was going to do for that. Like everything was it just felt completely out of control. It felt completely overwhelming, completely beyond what I was capable of kind of doing, really. You know, I'd start one thing and it would just feel futile because, like, you know, selecting one tiny little drop in this ocean of stuff that needed to be done, to be focused on, to be addressed. It just felt like the thing that I'd selected. What's the point? What's the point in choosing that thing? Because it's meaningless. And so I was stuck in this no man's land. So much to do and nowhere to start. Like I really felt that sense of overwhelm. And at that point, this line came into my head and it just kind of stuck with me and it stayed there. And it was just this line: if you want to get a better grip, sometimes you've got to let go. I don't know where it came from, and I've never forgotten it. And so I had this image of kind of holding on to a rock face, and you know that sense of like, I'm not going to be able to hold on to this for much longer. Like I'm losing my grip. And what's my choice? Like what? I've got to take a chance here. If I'm going to climb back up, then I need to kind of let go and see if I can kind of re-grip. Or maybe I just need to let go and see what happens. Either way, like I'm going to be falling. And you know, when you're holding a bag and it gets uncomfortable, sometimes the best thing to do is just like put it down, adjust your grip and pick it back up again. And then it's like, that's more comfortable. And you can go a bit further. I don't know. Like it's not a perfect metaphor, but it's an idea that like I've just found really interesting over the years. And so I was kind of thinking about all the things that we carry that we don't need to be holding, or things that we are holding really tightly to, the things that we hold in the wrong way, things that become overwhelming and burdensome for us, things that are really uncomfortable that actually we just need to put down so that we can make a judgment call about, do we want to pick it up again? And if we do want to pick it up again, how can we pick it up in a way that actually means that we can go further with it? Sometimes we just need to let go of that wall altogether. We just need to let go of that rock face, and we just need to fall. We need to trust that whatever happens, you know, we're going to be able to kind of, I don't know, pick ourselves up at the end of it. Like it's not life or death, despite the kind of life or death nature of that metaphor. You know, that may be why it's not a great metaphor. But yeah, I don't know. This year I've been thinking about this idea a lot again, and it's been there when I've been thinking about the next season of Life in the Haven, but it's also been dominating my thinking about life more generally. You know, in order to get a better grip, sometimes you've got to let go. Sometimes you've got to release. Because sometimes we just hold things too tightly and we end up suffocating or like ruining the thing that we're trying to hold on to because we hold it in the wrong way. And this idea seems to be everywhere for me right now. And I was thinking about this theme of luxury, and as I was again, this thing, it feels like a grounding principle. It's only in letting go that we know what matters most. And it's in when we hold on too tightly to things that we turn them into burdens rather than joys. We turn things that are good into things that actually become like, you know, burdens, weights around our shoulders, weights in our, you know, things that tear through our fingers. The things that bring meaning to our lives, if we hold on too tightly, we can suffocate the life out of them. And when I was thinking about luxury in this spirit, I started to equate luxury to freedom. You know, luxury is the freedom to let go of things that keep us hemmed in and tied down, the things we hold tightly to, which end up holding us too tightly. And so luxury is the freedom to pick up whatever gives us genuine sense of value and meaning. This is different for everyone. You know, one person's luxury is another person's poverty. I guess we can't really compare these things with one another without knowing what motivates them. We can't assume that just because something looks lavish and luxurious that it is. It might be hiding a real sense of lacking. Like the person who appears confident and strong, but their appearance is, you know, papering over these deep cracks of insecurity and low sense of self-worth. So luxury is freedom. It's time, it's energy, it's abundance. It's the fuel that gives us the vision to focus on what matters most. It's what prevents us from living in true luxury. Okay, so if luxury is freedom, then what gets in the way? Well, like with many things, it requires a constant recommitment and checking in with ourselves. Something can be a source of luxury one day, but then it slips into poverty mode without us realizing the next. It can be a source of scarcity and fear. Let me try and explain what I mean by that. So, my friends Stephen and I have started a new podcast. We started at the beginning of lockdown, where we're kind of discussing the BBC TV series Inside Number 9, which is one of my favourite TV shows of all time. And, you know, we started it just like, well, I'd wanted to start it for a while because there's no podcasts about Inside Number 9, and I was getting really frustrated because it's the sort of thing that I want to just delve more deeply into. So I was like, okay, if no one else is doing it, let's start one and then see if we can inspire other people to do their own, because they're like, yeah, that's crap. Like, let's do a better one. And like we also kind of, we used it as a way to just have a regular chat with one another during lockdown and to talk about something that we really enjoy, you know, rather than just getting ourselves annoyed by talking about current affairs and the news and stuff. Especially, you know, when I was kind of not really delving into that kind of stuff as well. And so, yeah, like the idea was to connect with one another and then give people who are looking for a podcast about Inside Number 9 something to dive more deeply into as well. So that thing that I felt that I wanted to try and provide that. But weirdly, since we started, especially since it's begun to gain a bit of traction and more people are listening, responding, commenting on the podcast, the kind of luxury of doing something without expectations or attachment to outcomes has shifted slightly, because people are really enjoying it. We've done basically no promotion other than creating a Twitter, which I'm rarely on, and lots of people are finding it. And I guess the knowledge that people are listening and that they're looking forward to hearing us discuss particular episodes, like, you know, the specific episodes that people are like, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. It creates a sense of pressure, and it's left both of us a little bit intimidated at times. It's been really interesting to observe in myself, because my instinct is to think, okay, that pressure, I've got to do this better. We've got to change everything about this. You know, we've got to completely revolutionize how we're doing this, because people now have expectations that we provide value. And I've recognized it's been really helpful to be doing this podcast with somebody else, because it's shone a light on the thing that happens to me when I'm working alone a lot. It's been there throughout my life in music, you know, and I the luxury of making music on my own terms, in my own way, along my own path, it gets compromised when people start to respond favorably to it. You know, I think, I don't want to let them down. They're obviously, they've been duped somehow into getting to this point where they think that this thing that they like is something that they like. I don't want them to see through the fact that I'm just making this up as I go along. So I'm like, right, I've got to change gears. I've got to shift to something different. And I'll probably just make a complete U-turn, complete change of direction, which then they're like, what are you doing? Like, I was enjoying that. Why have you stopped? And so, yeah, doing the artist way has helped me see quite how often I've engaged in this kind of self-sabotage. And it's a lot. It's happened many, many times. And it's also helped me recognize the presence of that voice so that I can, I guess, talk it down off the ledge and bring it back. The ironic thing is that, you know, people are responding to what is already being done. It's like, and that's what I've really struggled to see. You know, they're listening, they're sharing, they're enjoying it because of what it is, because of the thing that's already been made. So my job is like pretty much just to keep doing more of the same. What I see is that there's luxury in getting to create without expectation or awareness of anybody listening or watching or reading. And it's that luxury which I guess leads to the kind of organic, the raw, the solid creative output. Then if that meets approval, or it kind of gains a bit of traction, it meets a bit of success or whatever, that luxury of obscurity, which I'll mention a little bit later as well, that kind of luxury of believing that you've got complete freedom is taken away. And it must be let go of in order to be picked up again in a new and relevant way. So in this example, the new luxury is the freedom to keep doing what we've been doing in the knowledge that it works. And I think that's a real revelation for me, because it's like, actually, that's a luxury. So the luxury is you've started something and it hasn't failed. So the luxury is you get to keep doing what you've already started, and you don't have to adjust it very much, if at all, for now. It's easy to see how something that you love doing can be swept along a path towards non-enjoyment. You know, when you lose the sense of freedom to just create and enjoy without an agenda or an attachment to forced outcomes. This might be true, especially if you have kind of external sources of support or funding. You know, a luxury, that the freedom to create thanks to that funding. You know, that money's enabled you to be able to create this thing, maybe even enabled you to be able to quit your job so that you can make this thing. That luxury can soon become a poverty, because it places limits on what you should create, or what you feel you're allowed to create, you know, what you feel you should communicate, the kind of restrictions over the message. These things that might come from the source of that funding, the source of that original freedom, might then become a source of poverty. We can move through life with our eyes open to the payoff and the trade-off lens. You know, a sponsorship for a podcast might seem like, it might mean that you can quit your job and do the podcast full time. What a luxury. That's amazing. But the trade-off is you might not fully own your ideas. You might not be able to say what you want exactly. And that might be absolutely fine. You know, it might make no difference at all. Probably depends on the nature of your podcast. But on the other hand, it might make a difference. You know, that's only you can sort of make that call. It might lead you to resent what you're doing and to feel like it's kind of sucking the life out of you. To resent the source of that funding, to resent the thing that you once saw as a point of freedom that is now a point of poverty. What other areas of life do you recognize this dynamic at play? I'll try and play another song while you think about your response to that question. I'm going to do Hold On itself, I think. So this is the song inspired by that idea that in order to get a better grip, you've got to let go, or sometimes you need to let go. I'm going to be an even sweatier mess after this one. That's great. So hot. So what does luxury mean to you? As we've been exploring this idea, how have you been relating to it? What areas of your life are you enjoying luxury in right now? I remember writing an article a few years ago for Putty Like with Emily Wapnick, multi-potentialite community, absolutely brilliant website. I wrote a few articles for it, I absolutely love. And I wrote this post about enjoying the period of time before you become successful and known. I say that as if that's a guarantee, but like this time where you get crickets at the beginning. Like I was specifically talking about writing. So when I first started my blog, I'd write a blog post, publish it, and no one would respond. No one would kind of comment. No one would say anything. And I could see that, people were reading. I think the number on my that I refer to in the article itself is I've like refreshed my Google Analytics and there's 50 people who have come onto my website today, but no one's saying anything about it. And yeah, I kind of refer to this like in a roundabout way, calling it the kind of luxury of obscurity. And for many of us, this is a really hard thing to imagine because we're conditioned into believing that we need to be seen and that luxury comes, once we have the numbers. It comes, when people are paying lots of money for our courses, for our e-products, for our stuff, whatever it might be. Or in your workplace, the people who are at the top, people who are further up the ladder, they're the ones living in luxury. That's the place we should be aspiring to get to. Well, those at the bottom don't have any luxury. Now, in some ways, this might be true in specific ways, especially if you're really struggling to make ends meet, and basic survival is all you can think about, But beyond the base level, this is a bit of a misnomer that luxury is a preserve for those at the top. In fact, luxury is often lost the more that you have, or within this kind of, especially in the middle management area, and in the middle part of, success. When you look at things like businesses and blogs in that kind of realm, where people, I don't know, it's almost like the more that you have in that respect, the more you need to hold on to. The more responsibility, the more blame, the more pressure to succumb to the expectations that other people have, the more pressure there is to meet the demands that people place on you. Whereas in obscurity, you have the luxury of space. You have luxury of silence, the luxury of those crickets, the luxury of being able to write a blog post and no one really respond to it. And so you have space to grow. You're not under the gaze of people who are watching you and waiting for you to succeed or waiting for you to fail. Those who seek recognition, numbers and fame before they've enjoyed the luxury of obscurity are often, they're going to make big mistakes that cost a lot in terms of their sense of self-worth. And we see this all the time. There's countless examples that like over the years I've seen this happen time and time again. People who have just fixated on upward growth, on the perception of success, and you can see it because like actually you read their stuff and it's just kind of empty and there's nothing of real substance. There's certainly nothing of a true unique voice there. They're not saying anything in a way that hasn't been said before, and because they equate externals with success and they try to run in front of a crowd before they could walk in the privacy of their own home, they've kind of hit this problem, this obstacle that actually they're not really equipped to get up from afterwards. And that's the luxury of obscurity, is the free gift of failure as growth, of learning at your own pace, of the kind of developing your ideas and your skills and your self-awareness and your ability to cope with adversity, your ability to cope with obscurity, because it's a difficult thing to cope with. It can be quite painful. It can be quite isolating and lonely. But these things deepen, they stabilize our roots. And if we kind of just embrace that luxury of that space, we can really grow deeply. If we're patient with ourselves, if we're patient within our goals, within our hopes, within our dreams, we can grow deep roots, strong roots that kind of outlast. And I've seen this, and it might just be my bloody mindedness, I don't know, but I've outlasted a lot of people who have been more successful than me in short-term kind of stretches. But ultimately, I just feel like my trajectory is gradual. It's stable, and it's moving in the direction that I want it to move. That's true. I don't know. And so you can find this kind of luxury by simply deciding not to tell people what you're trying to do. On the one hand, if you announce your intentions, you lose the luxury of being able to work on something without expectation or pressure from others. This is something worth trying. Both sides of this equation can be true. The announcing what you intend to do might be a really helpful thing for you to do, because it might hold you to account. It might that kind of accountability might be really helpful for you. But also on the other side of that, announcing what you do before you do it might give you the same kick as actually doing it, and it will kind of remove the motivation towards actually getting it done. And so for me, it's probably a kind of middle ground situation. But I definitely enjoy the luxury to just get on and do things without announcing that I'm going to do things. And lifestyle choices come to mind here. Someone who wants to stop drinking alcohol for a month, or maybe a person who wants to, give up eating meat. We lose our luxury when we attach labels to things as well. I remember having a conversation with someone probably about 18 months ago about, I was thinking I'd love to just kind of live without meat or cut right down, but I want to do that without. I don't want to become a label. I don't want to attach myself to a label like vegetarian or vegan, because it I don't know. There's something about that just feels restrictive and imprisoning. I want to be able to, choose for myself, respond to whatever situation I'm in the way that feels right, because I don't want to just be a kind of it's not a black and white thing for me. And I don't want to be completely limited by a label, because I want the freedom for myself, but also it gives something that others can use to judge me by, and I find that restricting as well. And in many ways, I think a life of luxury is a life free of the labels that we use to define ourselves and to define others. And I feel I should qualify this somewhat here, because obviously, I am a big advocate of certain labels and the use that we make of them. Of course, labels serve a purpose when we need them. They signpost us to freedom from other little tyrannies. For example, a medical diagnosis can lead to more effective and helpful therapeutic and practical support. It gives you something tangible to work with based on similar cases and past experiences that medical professionals can draw on to give you the best sort of support they possibly can. By labeling someone you're someone with a broken leg, that kind of helps them to support you in the best way possible. Same with anything in a medical sense. And I guess we see this as a luxury of modern medicine. The luxury to know specifically what's wrong and to address the issue at its source, and thus get better. Once you label something, it's okay, now we have a thing that we can use to identify the best treatment, and therefore we can move to a better place. Likewise, the labels of, personality labels like introvert, highly sensitive person, it's help millions of people see themselves in context. By speaking to the challenges that we've experienced in cultures built on extroverted ideals, these labels help free us as introverts and highly sensitive people from the belief that there's something wrong with us. And from there, we can build a better picture. We can design life in more effective, more manageable, and ultimately more flourishing ways. The label is the start of a journey towards the destination of freedom. And the defining moment when you reach that destination is when you surrender the label itself. It's like the crutch that supported your rehabilitation after a broken leg, or the shell that supported the growth of the baby chick. Without it, you wouldn't have found the support to develop and to grow and to eventually hatch. You know, if you were once an egg, that was like your identity was you're an egg. Then you became a chick, and from there you continue to grow separate from the egg. You're apart from the egg. You're not the egg anymore. You're not even like in the egg anymore. You're not like that. That is no longer a thing that kind of defines who you are. A label is not the thing itself. It's a symbolic noise, a collection of squiggles on the page. It points us in the necessary directions to support belonging and encouragement for our development and our growth. But we reach that hatching point where we can stand without it, outside of the egg, apart from that egg. Of course, we will forever be introverted and highly sensitive, but that is not who we are. We are people. We are apart from that label. You know, the label, the egg nurtures us, but we can't fly when we're in the egg. The egg nourishes us, but we can't see. The egg protects us, but we can't outgrow the limitations of the size of that egg. We can't step into our potential form without breaking out of it. Use of the right labels enables us the luxury of living life outside of them. The egg's purpose is to create a living being that doesn't rely on the egg. Like a parent, like a teacher, like a guru, its ultimate aim is the elimination of its own purpose. Like that, it's kind of this self-sacrificing being, this self-sacrificing thing that its whole purpose is to grow you to a point where you no longer need it. And we can live a life of luxury when we see labels in this way, rather than in the way that we seem to often attach ourselves, which is to try building ourselves into the label. And when we seek labels as validation or tribal identity markers, we deny ourselves the luxury of living. Labels stop us flying, seeing, growing into the fullness of our potential. They separate us from one another as we withdraw into little egg-shaped bubbles. We view the other people in their egg-shaped bubbles through like film-like shells. You can't see the full details, the full intricate nature of other people. There's a form, but there's no definition. When I work with clients on personality profiling, I always say, you know, this is about awareness. It's not about definition. It's about freedom, not wall construction. It's a tool to help us see people as people and understand our differences in order to more deeply enjoy the things that bind us together. It's not about finding something to use as a beating stick to say, yeah, see, I'm different, I'm special, and you should treat me as such. It's about understanding why you feel like you do in a world that isn't designed with everybody else in mind, and taking that awareness and learning in order to find freedom in yourself and make it better for everybody else. This is where we find luxury. This is where we live in luxury. This is the essential definition of luxury. Luxury is excess. It's lavishness beyond what is necessary or moderate. It might take us to visions of self-indulgent and lustful greed, but this again is a luxury that requires attachment to things, to the pursuit of pleasure, to avoidance of discomfort, and an entitlement to something which only a few can access. I really love Derek Sivers' definition of wealth in this respect. It's simply having more than you need. And this is not for us to project onto others. It's rather something we decide for ourselves. You know, what do we need? And it fits with luxury because a life of luxury is one where we have excess resources. Essentially, we have more than we need. Whatever we define within those boundaries of need, the more we decide we need, the more we will require to be wealthy and to live in luxury. Therefore, the best way to become more wealthy is to need less. And that's a choice. To change your standards, to alter your sense of entitlement to certain things. Luxury is found in the freedom that this provides. If you don't actually need that thing you thought was vital for your happiness, then luxury is found in the freedom from that desire. Think of a life of luxury as a life of freedom. The luxury is in the gaps. The luxury is between. the stuff. It's the things we're able to do because of all the stuff that we release. Luxury is our choice, not our judgment of what we don't have that others do have. And I'm going to leave you with this question. When you consider your life right now, where might there be luxury hiding in the gaps? What could that luxury make possible for you? For me, I guess I'd say, the space I've created on my phone in letting go of my attachment to social media. Also, the change I made in taking this podcast from weekly to monthly. These have both been massive sources of luxury for me, enabling me to enjoy more wealth in time that I can put into other projects, that I can put into creative habits, that I can put into making, for example, the podcast better each month than I can if I'm doing it each week. I've been able to work on my coaching diplomas and build my business with more freedom and less pressure on my time. And these just exude luxury for me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Please do get in touch. Leave a comment in the show notes or send me an email. You can get in touch, andy@andymort.com. Which is fairly easy to remember. And I'm going to leave it there. I need to go and have a very cold shower because I am absolutely dripping. But thank you so much for listening today. I would love to just ask you a massive favour before we go. The best thing you can do to support the podcast, other than becoming a patron through Patreon, is to rate and comment on the show wherever you're listening to it. And that would just be amazing. Just take a minute to find the Gentle Rebel podcast there. Leave a nice rating and a review if you have time. It just really helps to get this show and more episodes of it into the ears of people who are searching for help and support with this topic, with things that we've explored in the past and potentially things we're exploring in the future. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. I'd really appreciate it. It'd be lovely. Thank you so much to those who already have done that as well. That means the world. Cool. So, I'm going to be back next time with another episode of the Gentle Rebel podcast. Until then, do remember, you are an artist. The world needs your art. You're surrounded with luxury. Identify it. Now go and make somebody's day. Goodbye.
Angels in disguise, we can be, 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 we can all be angels in disguise, we can be, we can be.